Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And I'm joined today by Ramona. Ramona, can you please share a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yes, and good afternoon. My name is Ramona Agrela, and I'm the Senior Vice President and Vice Chancellor for Human Resources at the University of California, Irvine. I've
Tell me a
been
little,
in, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, finish sharing about your background.
Yes, well, I oversee the coworker HR experience for our
Mm,
about 32,000 coworkers at the
mm.
University of California, Irvine. That includes our main campus, our main academic campus, our College of Health Sciences, and then our clinical enterprise at UCI Health.
And tell me a little bit more about your generative AI adoption journey.
It's relatively, I would say we're still in the beginning stages of our journey.
Mhm,
We've just started off. And we're looking at how basically the function here is how to increase our efficiency
mm,
and help our coworkers be more effective in our HR work within human resources. So it's a lot of
mhm,
it's looking at self-service functions that can be done through
mhm,
AI. It's a lot of how to take the mundane tasks, the root tasks that
mhm,
are done every day, and how to use generative AI to help support those functions. And then again, how to increase efficiencies for not only our coworkers within HR, but those who need HR services as well.
mm. Now, how do you plan to measure those impacts? So you talked about some of your goals. How do you plan to measure how well you're achieving those goals?
Well, we have three basic pillars within HR that we measure all of our activities against. We call these our North
Mm,
Star. So it's measuring employee engagement,
mhm,
measuring UCI as a talent destination, and measuring um, our effectiveness in employee processes. So we
mhm,
have benchmarks in each one of those key areas that measure our effectiveness. So AI, while not a separate pillar, would be
mhm,
interwoven in each one of those pillars to
mm,
help improve our output on any one thing. So if we're moving the dial on any one of those pillars and AI is one of the tools we're using, then that's how we measure our success.
mm. Now, tell me a little bit more about what kind of challenges you anticipate experiencing. You're starting off already. Presumably, you've kind of thought about some of the challenges, some of the barriers, some of the structural issues that might be challenges for you. So, what are you thinking there?
So some of the challenges is first is resources, having enough
Mm,
resources to actually implement an AI tool, and then the time and knowledge base it requires to set it up and get it effective and have our staff know how to use it.
mm,
Where as everybody, or lots of things are on our plate. We just completed a
mm,
merger or an acquisition of 4,200 employees. All of these
mm,
things are taking precedent. So the idea is taking time away from our already busy schedules to try to
mm,
implement an AI tool is challenging.
mm,
Learning how to use the tool, learning how to implement it effectively. You don't want to just throw in a tool and then hope that it's working. You really
sure.
need to take the time, particularly some of the tools like chatbots. We
Mhm,
need to train the chatbots. We need to make sure
mhm,
that they were developing them, that they have all the knowledge base, they're linked to the right applications so that
mhm,
they are effective. And that takes time and that takes training and that takes
mm,
patience. And sometimes that's just hard to come by when you're
mhm,
when we're working as hard as we do. So that right now is the biggest challenge is
mhm,
finding the time to learn about the AI tools and
mm,
then to implement them appropriately and so that they are successful. I think that's the
mhm,
biggest challenge. And then there's so many different tools available.
mm,
Which one is the right tool? Which one will work for
mhm,
our constituents? So before we implement any tool, we really have to make sure it fits within our culture and in our business strategy.
mhm,
And that takes time again to do all that legwork to ensure
mm,
that we're implementing the right tool for our culture and our climate. And then it's
mhm,
cost, to be honest. Some of the things we just don't have a
mm,
budget for AI.
mm,
And so a lot of the thing, luckily for us, some of the technology that we've already implemented comes with AI bolt-ons that don't
Hmm.
necessarily cost us that much money. So that's where we're spending
Hmm.
our immediate time is those things that are
Hmm.
bolt-ons to our existing systems. But again, it still requires that time to train it. I have one of my
Hmm.
colleagues who called the AI chatbot as a new employee. He
Hmm.
characterizes it as a new employee. And so we have to train it and orient it just as we would
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
new coworker. And so
Hmm.
that takes time.
I can imagine. Now, one of the things that I've seen, so I've worked with a number of organizations on integrating generative AI, and a little bit further along in the journey, employee resistance becomes an issue
Mhm.
because employees are, especially at educational institutions, higher education, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of resistance with talking faculty members concerned about cheating. We're talking about
Yeah.
staff members concerned about losing their jobs. And so, what are you thinking about there? Have you done some focus groups, some surveys? What are the kinds of conversations that are happening around that? And if you have done some anticipatory work on that, how do you plan to address potential resistance?
Right now, our biggest resistance, I would say, would be in the form of the applicant screening. So you can
Hmm.
use AI to screen, and this
Hmm.
technology has been around for a long time, but
Yeah.
it's more prevalent now with all the
Hmm.
AI technology. But to
Hmm.
screen resumes and applications as they come in to for skill sets
Hmm.
and experiences and all those type of things. But that's where we're getting a lot of hesitancy and pushback because there's
Hmm.
a concern that you didn't train, again, going back to the training of the AI, you didn't train it well, and it is inadvertently doing reverse discrimination or
Hmm.
discrimination into having disparate impacts on your
Hmm.
recruitment pool. So we're not using AI in
Hmm.
our applicant screening process right now because of that concern and because we
Hmm.
haven't been able to dedicate enough time to looking into it and to doing the adequate
Hmm. Hmm.
training. We're putting that one on hold. So we're focusing on those things that are going to be additive or helpful to our clients.
Hmm.
So we're not anticipating that is going to be as much of a challenge for
Hmm.
acceptance. So for example, um, employee self-service, having a
Hmm.
chat bot or some sort of technology where employees can just type in their questions
Hmm.
and get a response or get linked to documents that have their response.
Hmm.
Employee who's going out on a leave and needs to start processing their
Hmm.
leave documents can go on to the AI. So these are customer focused with the intent of making
Hmm.
their lives easier. So in that regard, the pushback has been minimal, right? Because
Hmm. Yeah.
it's supposed to be supportive. However, if the information is wrong, if the links are bad, or they lead to dead ends or anything like that, that kills it for us immediately. That
Yeah.
we lose the support from our clients. So again,
Hmm.
we need to take the time to make sure that what we're putting out there for our clients and how we're training these
Hmm.
technologies is going to be supportive. So far, it has been good. The feedback has been receptive. But as you mentioned, higher ed is a unique animal.
Hmm.
And people are used to picking up a phone and calling a
Yeah.
person. This idea of talking to a computer isn't necessarily some of our longer term employees, whether they're faculty or staff, are comfortable with. They want to talk to a
Hmm.
live body. So that is still a hurdle that we're
Hmm.
trying to figure out how to overcome. So we're hoping that
Hmm.
the newer generation, the new hires that are coming to our organization, those that are more
Hmm.
comfortable with technology, we'll go to those resources while we still can support
Hmm.
our more tenured employees by personal assistants.
Hmm. Makes sense. Now, I'm curious what you've done in terms of governance. So, in terms of setting up governance structures, organizations, universities that have a little bit more maturity than it sounds like you have at this stage, they typically set up a governance council of some sort to manage the kind of anticipate the kind of resistance and challenges that come with more thorough integration of generative AI. What are you doing around AI governance to manage risks and ethics and bias and all of these issues?
Yeah, so we have actually two different resources available to us. One is we have a compliance committee that
Mhm.
reviews all of these things. So it
Mhm.
privacy and compliance. So it's looking for all of these aspects of it.
Mhm.
So as we're introducing new technologies or new systems, this privacy committee looks and tests our systems to ensure that we're not
Mhm.
that we're meeting that threshold, that expectation. And then we also have a data governance committee. So it's also
Mhm.
looking at, because these devices, these technologies require pull into our data systems. And
Mhm.
so the data governance committee is also looking to make sure that we're meeting all of our qualifications before we
Mhm.
attach any new piece of technology to our existing system. So we have a couple of hoops to jump through. It's
Mhm.
not just one AI governance committee.
Mhm.
It's not only the usability focus, it's also the privacy and compliance focused, as well as the data governance focus. So lots of different hoops for us to jump
Mhm.
through, which is, as if you're familiar with higher ed, very
Sure.
common in higher ed as
Yeah.
well.
Now, to what extent is the university president, the university provost, the leadership team, to what extent are they engaged in generative AI conversations?
So the university provost is probably more engaged on it from from the student side of like, how are we
Mhm.
dealing with this on the student and how we're implementing generative AI in teaching and learning. You
Mhm.
talked about the interest, being careful about cheating and all those things. That's, I think, the pedagogy side of AI
Mhm.
is probably where the provost is spending his time. He is not getting involved in the tactical stuff that we're
Mhm.
doing in HR, as long as we are in compliance with those committees that I talked to you
Mhm.
about earlier. He trusts that these committees are working
Mhm.
in the appropriate manner to protect the university from undue risk. From a financial perspective, though, I can tell you, um, we're managing through budget challenges, as
Mhm.
a lot of my colleagues in higher ed across the
Sure.
country are suffering. And AI can be a tool to help ensure that we can still provide a certain
Mhm.
level of service to our clients, but do it with less FTE.
Mhm.
And so that is attractive, assuming we can do it correctly.
Okay. Now, as we finish up, where do you anticipate generative AI going in the future for you in the next couple of years as you're looking ahead? What do you see as that future?
I don't know. I'm really excited. One thing, I have been with the university for 20 some odd years, and
Mhm.
I'm always surprised, not surprised, but I'm always, it's amazing how we just transition and
Mhm.
reform ourselves. And I see AI as being our ability to do that as well. What
Mhm.
I'm looking for, what I'm hoping for, again, is to make the burden on my team
Mhm.
less and really work for more of that strategic level. So that transactional work that we're all
Mhm.
doing every day, whether it's writing memos or personnel correspondences or hiring, posting jobs or writing recruitment
Mhm.
advertising, those things that are more rote or routine for us, I would love for that to become AI
Mhm.
generated so that my
Mhm.
teams, because I envision my teams are going to be smaller over time, can
Mhm.
focus more on the strategic aspects of our work, working more to help on workforce planning and
Mhm.
employee development and skill building, and helping the organization continue to help the organization meet its
Mhm.
strategic goals, which you can only do if with really deep and helpful thought partners. I view
Mhm.
AI as kind of leveling that out, kind of clearing
Mhm.
out that transactional work for us so that we can perform at that higher level.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your vision, Ramona. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me to participate.
And thank you to the audience for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you checked out the show and leave a review. It helps others discover the show and helps us improve the show. And if you have any questions, email me at gleb, Gleb, at disasteravoidanceexperts.com.